Live from Singapore, now on BBC News Business Today.
Hello and welcome to Business Today with me, Steve Lai. Now, Russia's President Vladimir Putin is in India for key talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It's his first trip to Delhi since his full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and trade and strengthening economic ties are top of the agenda, as Prime Minister Modi faces pressure from Washington to stop buying oil from Moscow. Well, for more on this, I'm joined by Kosmás Mαρινάκης, a Senior Lecturer of Economics at SMU. Kosmás, great to have you in studio.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's start with this trip then. Now, how consequential is Putin's trip to India?
So this is not at all a typical visit. We're talking about a highly strategic move from Russia. President Putin will travel to New Delhi in order to have some crucial negotiations that not only they will affect the outcome of the war, but also the immediate future of the Russian economy. They're going to talk about three things: defense, trade, and oil. With respect to defense, Putin, of course, wants to retain one of his best customers for the arms industry of Russia. With respect to trade, he will probably propose a directly denominated in rupees trade between the two countries. And also, the most important is to convince India to keep buying the heavily discounted Russian oil.
And they need that for their revenue stream. Oil is a major issue, though, of contention with the United States, saying that India has halted some of Russian oil imports, but they want to see more of that happening. How do you see this playing out?
So this is completely accurate. The United States, through sanctions, key sanctions to Russian companies that they are the major exporters of oil, but also through the threat of tariffs directly to India, has achieved to slow the flow of Russian oil to India, but also to squeeze a very critical revenue for Moscow. So, in other words, the United States has played the demand card, that is, tells India that if you keep buying the cheap Russian oil, then in this case, your products will have difficult time to find demand in the premium American market. So it's now the turn of President Putin to play the other side of the equation, the supply, to tell India that if you quit buying the cheap oil that we offer to you, then in this case, your products may lose the advantage, the cost advantage that they have, not only for the US market, but for the entire world.
That's quite a situation or position for India to find itself in. Just so, for context then, how reliant of Russian oil is India on, or is reliant the right word?
It's not so much an issue of reliance, but mostly an issue of price. So historically, even before the war, India would buy some oil from Russia, but its major supplier would be the Middle East. India turned towards Russia for oil during the war, just because it was way cheaper. So we could see discounts up to $7 per barrel, which is quite significant. Now they have again reduced the demand for Russian oil just because they want to smooth the way for a trade deal with President Trump. This is exactly the situation that President Putin has to deal with. So he will go to the negotiations with three major cards. The first is to offer some maybe heavier discounts. The second, to promise some direct investments from Russian companies to India. And the third one, the rupee-denominated trade, which will be significant for India as it's going to circumvent the major reserve currencies.
And just lastly, what else should we know in terms of the Russia economic relationship? When we know that India has a long relationship with Russia going back many years.
That's correct, but this is going to affect not only the two countries, but the entire globe. So if the United States is successful to limit India from buying oil from Russia, then this huge quantity of oil will be difficult to find its way in the market. So we will consequentially see increase in the price of oil, something that perhaps it will reignite fears for cost-push inflation, which the developed countries struggled to fight for the last 3 years. This was actually the reason why the previous US administration, President Biden, kind of silently allowed India to buy the Russian oil in order to keep the price of oil down and tame inflation.
Yeah, fascinating how all these dynamics come into play. Kosmás, thanks for helping us understand them better. Kosmás Mαρινάκης, Senior Lecturer of Economics at SMU.
Thank you.